So it's just been over a month since Sun and Moon were announced and YouTube is already flooded with wish lists. So I figured I'd throw my own one together. Today I'll be taking a look at some of the do's and don'ts for Sun and Moon. For anyone confused about what this video is, the easiest way I can explain it is that we're doing a discussion video here today, and I'm going to be talking about some things I would like to see in Sun and Moon versus some things I wouldn't like to see. It's that simple. So let's start off this video positively. Something I do want to see in Pokémon Sun and Moon is character customization. This is a staple on everyone's wish list it seems. The 6th generation brought in a lot of new features to the main series games. Pokémon and Me, Super Training, the PSS, and of course something a lot of Pokémon fans have wanted for years. Character customization. So far, X and Y is the only main series game to include character customization. That's because there's only been 2 Generation 6 games, and one of which was Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And they most likely didn't have it because they are remakes. They already have a set design for what May and Brendan should look like. But back to my point, I can definitely see them sticking with the character customization route from now on. I mean, look at Pokken. It may not be much, but you're able to customize your character in that game too. And for anyone in the minority thinking, why does everyone care so much about character customization? It just makes playing the game more of a personal experience, which is one of Pokemon's biggest selling points. The fact that no 2 runs of the game will be the same. There will be some difference in each person's playthrough no matter what. Now on the other hand, something I don't want to see in Pokemon Sun and Moon is an oversaturation of what's speculated to be the next stage of Mega Evolution. The whole human and Pokemon fusion thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, literally look it up on YouTube. There's plenty of theory videos on it. I don't even need to explain. So far we have Ash's Greninja, and I want to say AZ's Floette falls into this category also. I'm not completely against Pokemon like this, I find the idea cool, I just don't want 50 different variants of things like Lieutenant Surge's Raichu or Jesse's Wobbuffet. Isn't that what they call Pokemon from the trading card games sometimes? From what I gather, this stage of, I guess I'll call it evolution, is a very rare occurrence. So I hope that they keep it that way and maybe only 4 to 5 Pokemon are capable of doing it. Something I would like to see though is Serena's Breaksin. I think that would be really cool. While we're on the subject of different forms of evolution, as much as I love it, I hope they don't do what they did in X and Y and just add a bunch of Mega Evolutions to make up for the lack of new Pokemon. They made 71 new Pokemon for X and Y and added 28 Mega Evolutions. I can understand it may be becoming harder to design a brand new original Pokemon, so going back and redesigning old Pokemon isn't a terrible idea. I just prefer it if they didn't milk it too much. There are currently 46 Pokemon capable of Mega Evolution, and while yes, I do want more, I just hope they focus on designing new, original Pokemon for Sun and Moon. Another thing I hope they do in Pokemon Sun and Moon is allow us to choose different backgrounds for when we battle against other people. Currently we have a green, bluish, stadium simulation looking background, which isn't terrible, but it does get boring after using it for 2 years. They added a lot of customization to the 6th generation, and I hope they continue down that path and add more choices for many different things. Rather than making Generation 6's gimmick being that they had a lot of customization, now let's move on to something different. They even let us choose which battle music we heard before we battled people. I don't know much about developing a video game, so I don't know if it'd be too hard to add custom backgrounds. Like, I have no idea if the battle will take longer to load or what, but if it's able to be done, it's something a lot of people would be happy with seeing. Now while we're on the topic of battling stuff, I'm sure a lot of you saw this coming, but I hope they add a free-for-all mode to the game too. Currently we're using multi-battling to make them happen, but there'd be so much more potential to free-for-alls if they just made it an official mode. I won't talk about it too much since I've already covered it in a collab I did over on Tricky Wee's channel. The link to that will be down below. But just so you know, if I was ordering these as a list, free-for-all mode would be number 1. Now before Sun and Moon was announced, so many people were certain that the next game would be Pokemon Z. I don't mean to be a hipster, but I didn't really feel it. They were shoving Zygarde and stuff down our throat, yeah. But Pokemon have never been that predictable. No one can tell me they saw Black and White 2 coming. Everyone thought it was going to be Pokemon Grey. And when X and Y got announced, did you really expect that? Getting a bit off topic though, Pokemon Z. I wouldn't mind if they ended up making that game instead of Pokemon Sun and Moon because I am a huge fan of Zygarde and all his newly revealed forms. But something I didn't want to see is the game being X and Y but with a bit of updated graphics and a different legendary event, basically what Platinum was to Diamond and Pearl. If Z came out, I would want it to be a different half of Kalos we weren't aware of. Just make it like X and Y 2, but not with that name because that's dumb. And I still wouldn't mind seeing something like that. I know it's taking me a bit to get to the point, but something I don't want to see in Pokemon Sun and Moon is Zygarde and his story being thrown in there as an event legendary. I think his story could make a really interesting game, and it would suck if he just got some lame dialogue and an item, like Koopa and Diancie did. Speaking of lame items, The 6th generation experience share was horrible. I've watched some videos and spoke to some people, and not everyone is against the idea of giving your whole team experience. It's just that X, Y, Omega Ruby, and Alpha Sapphire were easy enough games that to be given such a broken item so early on in the game is a bit ridiculous. Yeah, you could just turn it off, but that means you have to switch train if you want to level up a specific Pokemon. Personally, I would like to see the held item experience share return. I doubt it'll happen, but a man can dream. Now, like I was just saying, the 6th generation games were pretty easy even without the experience share. But I don't blame Pokemon for trying to dumb the game down for new players. So I think they could combat this with a challenge mode. Now, I don't particularly mean add a Nuzlocke mode to the game, as awesome as that would be. I mean they should just have a simple, easy, medium, or hard mode and explain what each of them changes. They've actually already done this. You can change the difficulty of your game in Black and White too, but you have to have beaten the game first. And I'm looking up in Serbia right now, and to actually give yourself the challenge mode, it just seems really complicated and stupid, so they should just have it be something at the very beginning of the games. You may be curious though, what would they change if they upped the difficulty? Well, if you've seen what the ROM hacks like Blaze Black and Volt White do, then essentially that's your answer. But if not, they could just up the level of Pokemon by 50%. So like in easy mode, the champion could be level 60s, but in hard mode, he'd be in his 80s or his 90s. And of course they could give important trainers held items, and maybe even more medicine to heal their Pokemon with, better movesets. There's so many things they could do to make the games more challenging for more experienced players, rather than us having to enforce rules on ourselves to make the game hard. While watching wish lists from other YouTubers, I stumbled upon a few saying that they believe HM moves should be removed from the game and replaced with key items. For example, Cut being replaced with an axe. I'm sorry if I come off a bit harsh, but it's such a dumb idea. For starters, why would you let a kid carry around an axe? Yeah, the Pokemon we have with us on our journey are more dangerous than any axe could be, but it just seems so brutal. Like that's something you'd use in GTA, not Pokemon. Secondly, they've been there since the very first games. What's the point in removing them after 20 years? I understand you don't want to teach the main Pokemon on your team HM moves because it would ruin their moveset, but there's a move deleter for a reason, and they made it so easy now to get moves back with unlimited uses for TMs, the guy that reminds your Pokemon moves if you give him a heart scale, there's even move tutors. It honestly isn't as bad as it used to be. And to the people complaining about having to go out and find a HM slave, the way I see Pokemon is like the anime. You and your Pokemon are on an adventure together. They aren't just there for battling. They're there to help you go through your paths that you wouldn't be able to go through if you didn't have them by your side. And I personally like it that way. Yeah, some HM moves suck, but the way I see it, it adds a bit more difficulty to the game you guys have been screaming for. Because some of your Pokemon may be limited to 3 good moves rather than 4 because you had to teach it Cut. And finally, the last thing on my wish list, I hope Pokémon Sun and Moon adds some good post-game. It may be a bit generic, but I think the Delta episode was a step in the right direction. And with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching my video. I hope I didn't confuse anyone with the order I spoke about things. Be sure to let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments below, and I could maybe throw a couple more together rather than just making the generic top 10 whatever videos. Oh, and before you go, I'd like it if you could continue the discussion in the comments below. Let me know what you think about my do's and don'ts, and let me know your own personal ones. I'm so excited for these new games to come out, all I really want to do is talk about them. So I'll be replying to some comments. And if you haven't already, could I tempt you to subscribe? I make a bunch of different Pokemon content on my channel that I'm sure you will enjoy. Don't forget to check out my social media link down below. And lastly, leave a like. It really helps me out. Thanks again.